So I'm out here working, and I'm watching these videos about the Idaho floor case. And there's a theory presented that the defendant in the case was out. He was only in the area to meet his dealer and buy drugs. And people are saying, why didn't he come forward and tell the police this? You know, if he saw and heard things and then got his dope and left, why didn't he tell the cops that that's why he was there and go ahead and establish his alibi before they implicated him in the crime? Here's the thing. He didn't have a second thought that he'd ever be tied to the crime because he knew he was never in the house. If this theory is correct, he knew he was never in the house, so there's no reason for him to think that law enforcement could tie him to the crime. And what he had to contribute to the case was nothing. He heard screams, he saw some things, he didn't recognize anybody, couldn't identify anybody, didn't even know if what he was seeing and hearing was actually, it wasn't just fucking college kids fucking around. It seemed fucked up, but he wasn't sure. That's why he came back the next morning to check. Well, he had applied for a job with the local law enforcement in his town. The people that he would have came forward and talked to or brought his information to. He was a PhD candidate working on that. Why would you go to the law enforcement that you had applied for a job for and say, hey man, I have nothing of value to contribute to this case, but I just wanted you to know I was over there buying drugs. My drug dealer's name is this. And hey, by the way, did you guys check that application I put in? Like, you guys considering me? Why would you do that? If you have nothing to contribute, and no, not in a million fucking years, you could be tied to the crime because you weren't there, why would you go tell the people you'd applied for employment with that you were scoring drugs, your drug dealer's name, which is a fucking dangerous thing to do. Don't go around just willy-nilly fucking diming out drug dealers, because it ends badly. We've fucking kind of got some experience in this. If you look at the other videos by Pavarotti, and some of the theories out there of motive, like, don't go around telling people who your drug dealer is and pointing them out to the police. That's a fucking dangerous thing to do. Just saying, it might get you fucked up. But that's about it, man. Like, what good would have come of him going to law enforcement and fucking blowing up his career, and losing everything he had worked his entire adult life for? Hold on. Just to explain why he was in the area. He thought that it would fucking blow over. He thought it was going to blow over because he knew there was no evidence tying him to the house. He knew he was in the area buying drugs, didn't see anybody, couldn't identify anybody, and never in a million years did he think he'd get tied to the house, so he just kind of thought it would blow over. He might have had conversations with his dad about it. That might be why his dad flew out to drive home with him, so they could discuss it without discussing it on the phone. Because it's a guy that he might have been like, hey, you know, I was in the area, I don't know what to do. He might have been asking his dad for advice on this thing while they drove across country. That might be why his dad went out there, because everybody's questioned that since the beginning too. Why did his dad fly out there to drive back with him for the holidays? That just seems weird, blah, 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 blah. Maybe his dad, I need to talk to you, we can't talk on the phone, can you come out here? we'll drive back and we'll talk about what I've got going on. And his dad, being a good dad, flew out, and his son told him, hey, Dad, I've backslid. I've been using again, and I've got myself tied up in some bullshit, and I don't know what to do. But then his dad maybe just told him to, yeah, son, you need to keep your mouth shut and let it blow over, but you need to get clean. Sorry again. I'm at work. I'm a security guard. I thought I heard something. But yeah. Anyway. That's how families work. People that care about each other fucking do things like that. So, like, I don't know, man. I have experience in a lot of fucking different things, and having some of the life experiences that I have, I feel like, hey, sometimes you just have to keep your fucking mouth shut and hope for the best. Because coming forward, while no matter what your intentions are, if you come forward and incriminate other people that on things not involved with the crime you're coming forward about, like if he came forward with good intentions, like, oh, I want to explain why I was there and who I was meeting and this, that, because he couldn't have just been like, hey man, I was in the area just hanging out, I met somebody and fucking whatever. If he was explaining himself, he's like, hey, I went over there to meet my dealer, blah, blah, blah. They'd want to know who the fuck he met. So now he has to fucking tell on his dealer. Like, that's number one. Number two, like, well, what did you see? Absolutely nothing. I heard some screams, and we were like, what the fuck is going on over there? Yeah, that's fucking weird. We got to get out of here. And they left. Once law enforcement killed the co-defendant, they were committed to their theory. Because once they entered a house and they killed a veteran, that had PTSD, was cornered, trying to say, whatever, he didn't kill him. And once that happened, they were committed to this story. They were committed to this version. And if this theory is correct, what Pavarotti's put forward, and I believe it, because this dude, he fucking puts together the fact, like, he puts together a very good case for anything he presents, and it's an insane amount of work he has to put into that. I couldn't even imagine the amount of work that he has to put into that. Just finding the documents before going through them all, finding them to go through, and then picking them apart piece by piece, going through and finding the DNA, the way that it's used, the way that it's the process behind it, and then being able to read these reports and how these companies do their work, and then break it down so people, normal people, stupid guys like me, can understand it. That's a talent all in its own. And then all this effort that he's put in, you have people that will go down below and comment without watching the video. Like, just be 2 seconds in the video and start commenting like, if this is true, why didn't he just tell him now? Like, if he'd have just came forward in the beginning, he'd have avoided 4 murder charges, or I'd be telling everybody the truth. No, now he's in the legal system. In the legal system, you shut the fuck up and listen to your lawyer. That is it. That's your only play. If you are ever charged with 4 homicides on shoddy evidence, shut the fuck up and let your lawyer work. That's your only option. If you know you didn't do it, don't say a fucking word. This is a case that prosecution refuses to share discovery. And you want this guy to stand up and just belt out, "Oh, I was just over there buying drugs from Emma Bailey. Me and Brent Kopaka, we were snorting blow off of fucking whatever." And you expect him to stand up and say this shit? Nah, man. That is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Keep your fucking mouth shut and let your lawyer do their job. Or you're going to fucking die. If it's a death penalty state and you start fucking blurting out bullshit, and you're gonna die. Whether you're guilty or not, you're gonna die. So no, he should not be saying a fucking word. He should be sitting there in the courtroom, being professional, with his mouth shut, and putting forth a positive, a positive representation of himself. He shouldn't be showing his ass and fucking throwing trailer park temper tantrums and whatever. What I'm hoping comes out of this case is, one, the guilty are found guilty and the innocent are released. That's number one, that justice prevails. But as for the defendant, Ryan Kohberger, the man used to have faith in a system and wanted to become part of that system, believing that it sought justice. And I think this experience, I'm hoping that what this does is it doesn't change his passion for criminology, but instead he's learned that this system is flawed, and instead of working for a system that only seeks convictions, not the truth, he becomes an advocate for other people he believes are innocent, that he can help people in his situation in the future, and this experience be the best learning experience that he could possibly have to become an expert on law enforcement misconduct, on tampering of evidence, of signs that somebody's getting railroaded, and be able to go into a courtroom as an expert witness with a PhD and advocate on behalf of people in a similar situation in the future. That would be just a very cathartic ending to this entire mess. But I still want to see justice for the victims. 100%. I want to see justice for the victims. And I believe everybody does, except for the people involved in this whole sham trial. Like, I think that if investigators had cared about the victim just a little bit, had cared more about the fucking people that lost their lives than the revenue the college brings to their fucking town, I think that would have changed things, man. I live in a tourist town, and they cover crime rates. They don't want to be honest about things, and people come here and they get robbed, they get mugged, And it sucks because people are not making an informed decision because things are hidden and things are skewed and lied about. I think that law enforcement and cities and towns need to be more concerned with protecting people and finding justice for victims than they are with revenue. And that's not going to change, man, unless we demand it, unless we hold them to a standard. I would challenge anybody that ever has jury duty, make them prove it, man. Don't form an opinion on a defendant because of the way they look or, you know, whatever. Stay objective, man. Stay objective. It's better to see 100 guilty men go free than to see one innocent person convicted of something they didn't do. So always err on the side of not guilty, because I'd rather be wrong about that if they don't fully convince me, and I would be a very hard juror for both sides, because I believe in justice, and I think we should all be very hard jurors. I think that we have a natural impulse as people, as human beings living in a society, to trust authority because we put so much faith in them every single day. You know, we put faith in them to protect us or to enforce the laws, and we believe that these people are above reproach, just as a conditioning that we have. So we don't think, so we're real bad about trusting what they say without demanding a lot of proof. And I think that's a dangerous thing to do. I think we do very, like, there's so many guilters and people that just, oh, he looks creepy, law enforcement wouldn't have arrested him if they didn't have a whole bunch of evidence against him, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Yes, they would. They wanted the case closed. Plain and simple. They want the case closed. So, like, they want the case closed with as little noise as possible, with as little incriminating, with as little noise that will affect the revenue of their town as possible. They don't want to come out with some big drug conspiracy that they had flipped witnesses and these people had dealings with these people, and because this involvement with drugs, these kids were murdered in a college town on campus, like, well, close to campus. Fuck, man. That wouldn't be good for them. So to believe that people are incapable, that humans are incapable of of throwing somebody out that, you know, he could have done it. We don't have anybody else that we really suspect. There's possibilities of these people, but, you know, this is a big deal. And if we say that, parents might stop sending their kids here because drugs and murder and fraternity involvement and this, that, and the other. And man, if we come forward with that theory and we're not sure, we could cost the town a lot of money. They might lay off law enforcement with a lower population. What if the college closes? What if we lose so many students that the college closes? And the college was in the middle of a deal to buy out, I think, Phoenix College Online or some shit. The Idaho College was buying something at the same time. So it would affect a lot of shit. And that would affect every job in that town, every business in that town. Because less people means less money, period. Less money in the economy, period. The less people you have to police, the the smaller police force you need. So the less jobs you need, less people you have to have on payroll, right? And there's less tax revenue because there's so many factors in the reasons why that's a viable option that they didn't want that other theory to be true. Because if it's true, if that's really what happened, if they prove that's what happened, they might just fucking cost themselves a job by solving this crime. So yeah, you look at the evidence and you're like, well, his car was sitting up there for like 10 minutes. He could have done it. But nothing ties him to the victims. Maybe he's just a weird stalker guy. Surely he could have done it. But nothing ties him to the house. Well, find something. Is that fucking easy, dude? He could have done it. Maybe. Who knows? Enough circumstantial evidence and they talk themselves right into it. You know? Because he couldn't have done it. You don't walk into a house and kill 4 people alone in 10 minutes with a fucking knife. I was in the Marine Corps. Pretty familiar with the K-bar fighting knife. You do not walk into a house and ambush 4 people with a fucking knife. Even somebody proficient with said knife does not go in and stab 4 people to death with a knife and not take some damage, leave something behind, or carry something with them out of the house to transfer into their car. Doesn't happen. Wouldn't happen. It's impossible. Period. End of fucking story. A person does not carry a fucking knife sheath in their fucking hand and walk into a fucking... That's never... No. It's designed to go on your belt. Put it on your belt. That's what it would have never been left at the scene. Anybody carrying a knife in their sheath to a scene would have had it on their belt. Because there's no reason to carry it in your hand. If you're going into the place armed with the knife in hand, why bring the fucking sheath to begin with? Leave the sheath in the car and just carry the knife. If that's what you're doing, do that. But if you're taking it in the sheath should be on your belt. That's what it's designed to be. Why would it fucking be anywhere else? That theory makes zero fucking sense. Because he's proficient enough to kill 4 people by stabbing them to death and made 0 noise, takes 0 damage, transfers no DNA to himself and into his car, and only leaves a minute amount of fucking touch DNA on a knife sheath that he should have never fucking carried into the wood, that nobody with any fucking sense would have brought into, like, nah, man, you're not that proficient with a knife and that fucking stupid with the functionality of your sheath. Can't have it both ways. You can't have him so good with a knife that he kills 4 people without making a fucking sound, or taking any damage, or leaving any DNA other than touch DNA on a button snap. But he's stupid enough not to use his equipment the way it's designed. Get the fuck out of here. This theory is so fucking outlandish. And people still are like, whoa, the knife sheath, that's his DNA. Knife sheath would have never fucking been there. If the rest of their theory is correct, the person using the knife didn't bring the knife sheath. I would challenge a fucking special forces operator to recreate this scenario with a training knife, and not get scratched, punched in the fucking head, scuffled with, not make a sound and be able to eliminate 4 people. Two pairs of people that were fighting for their lives. Once the people don't get stabbed and then just stop, you can fight for 2 minutes with a hole in your heart. You can still do damage for 2 minutes with a hole in your heart. Because your mind keeps it going. You're willing to fucking fight. You're fighting for your life. People don't understand what the human body is capable of, and they believe stupid ass shit. It's fucking insanity. It's insanity. Like, short of walking in and catching each person alone, Splinter Cell style, and sticking something in the... I'm not going to go into detail. There's ways to do it quietly. It's not fucking waking them up to fucking stabbing them and having somebody next to them wake up and see you stabbing them. And then you've got a fight on your hands. You've got 2 people fighting for their lives and fighting to save the person that they love, their best friend or their girlfriend, that you're also going to stab to death. No, these people are going to fucking fight, dude. You think Ethan Chapin wasn't going to fucking fight his ass off, fucking protecting his girl and himself? This is a dude that got in a fight earlier that night, and you think that he's unwilling to fucking put up a fight against somebody that poked him with a fucking knife? Man. The fucking audacity of people to just believe that, oh, if you get poked with a knife, you just fucking fall over, right? No, man. It's not how it works. I had a good friend, guy I grew up with. Somebody walked into his house. They had a disagreement about something. A guy walked into his house and stabbed him 30 freaking times on his freaking couch. And he fought the dude off, and the dude ran. My friend died 3 times. Had open heart surgery to fucking correct some shit. And lived. Like, he wasn't a very big dude. And after being stabbed a number of times, he was still able to put up a fight. And then fucking survived, man. They fixed some shit. Like, it was close. He almost died, but he lived. Like, he did die. He died 3 times on the operating table. Like, but they were able to save him. So, this idea that people have of how things work doesn't make sense. I don't know if people are naive, because I saw a comment earlier on one of Pavarotti's videos that said maybe Brian thought he was being arrested for drugs at first. Cops can't arrest you for drugs not in your possession. And they wouldn't have been able to get a search warrant in Pennsylvania to search for drugs like that. They would have had to, like, they have to build a case to get a search warrant, and they have to convince a judge that drugs are being sold from that house to get a search warrant for drugs. They can't arrest you because somebody told them you were doing drugs the other day. Oh, he had some dope the other day, you know. This guy, he was just doing drugs yesterday. No, man. They make informants go do controlled buys for them. The informant takes money from the police, goes and buys drugs from their drug dealer, comes back and gives the drugs to the police. The police then weigh it and make sure that it is the correct amount of drugs for the amount of money that they gave them. And if not, they search the CI and make sure they didn't pinch any fucking drugs, man. And they make sure that happens multiple times. And then they can produce a case to a judge and say, hey, we've had a CI make controlled buys from this house X amount of times in these quantities. We have surveilled this address for X amount of days and had patrolmen pull cars that left this address, and they were all found in possession of such and such substance. They might not be able to flip all those people, but the ones they do, they become CIs that are making controlled buys. So all that, then, like after suspecting someone's a drug dealer, all that effort goes in to getting a judge to sign off on a search warrant. And then the search warrant is executed and they bust them. But it's a process that takes time and a considerable amount of effort. I don't understand how people get these wild ideas that it's easy. Because it's not. Yeah. It's just not. So anyway, put down the crack pipes. Stop thinking that everything's rainbows and fairy dust. And if you just tell the truth and tell them what you were doing there, it'll all be over. No, it's not going to happen now. He's in the system. Shut up and listen to your lawyer. As far as coming forward after the crime to clear his name, no. You don't go to an employer and say, no. I was just there buying drugs, guys. Just ask my drug dealer. No, you don't do that. That's fucking stupid. I do believe, though, that if he had had anything to contribute to the case, if he had been able to identify anyone that would have gave the victims justice, I think that he would have took the hit. I think that he would have gave up his career to do that. This is a guy that believes in the system enough to want to be part of it. So yeah, I believe 100% that if he had seen anything of value, anything that would have contributed to that case, I think he'd have came forward. But I think with nothing to contribute and everything to lose, he kept his fucking mouth shut, hoping it would blow over. Because he wasn't involved and knew he would never be tied to it. But there had to be evidence tying someone to it. And that being how he felt, yeah, he just kept his fucking mouth shut and hoped it blew over. And I don't think that's fair. I would never fault him for that. And nobody else should either. And anybody thinking that, oh, I would have just came forward. You're stupid. You're an idiot. If you had nothing to contribute and knew you weren't connected and everything to lose, you would just throw it all away for no fucking reason? There's no way I'm ever going to be tied to this crime scene. But I'm going to go because I was in the area, let me go explain that I was only there doing drugs and my future doesn't matter to me. That's fucking retarded.